That all too familiar noise. I love it. Music to my ears, Jim.
Someday we're going to have a real audience.
Yeah, but even I'm talking about the theme song. I think we're going to produce our own. Eventually, we're going to get in the studio and we're going to hash it out. We're going to figure that out.
Everything original.
Yeah, OG.
Organic.
So anyway, Jim, you know that about 2.5 weeks ago, I had a very pivotal moment in my speaking career. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I was part of the
spoke in front of a bunch of kids.
For the Impact program.
Right.
Impact conference. That was my big break, and I was really excited about that. And I learned a lot about Clovis Unified that I didn't know. And anyone who watches our last episode we released on Friday, like and subscribe today, with Thea, would know that at one point I was not a fan of Clovis, right? I had this whole impression, which completely was turned around. But while I was there, not only did I do the speaking, but I got a chance to do workshops, and we're doing, juggling for resilience. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, audience, later. But I was in the workshop, and it was a side classroom. I'm off stage now, right? We're in the side classrooms there, across the street from the theater there at Clovis. And I'm approached by an individual that it was like, I know this face. I definitely know the vibe. And it was a, fellow Danuba High School emperor. And I was like, and he knew my sister, and we knew a bunch of the same people. Have you ever had someone that you've met, when you meet them, they know everyone you know everyone they know, and you just can't understand how you've never met before?
True, yeah.
This was one of those.
Although, are we going to have any vibes here? Because I'm from Orosi, though. So this guy's from Danuba.
Yeah, we got beef, man.
Right, yeah.
The lines have been drawn. And not only that, you were the mascot.
Yeah, I was the mascot.
You went a little further than most. Anyway, folks, we walked over to my car, and we had a very, to me, a very important conversation, because he started to talk about his beginnings. And a lot of times, I feel like one of my biggest flex is like, hey, we're doing big things, and I'm from London, right? And then I get to talk about London, California. Well, he one-upped me, because there are actually towns smaller than London, right? This town is neighboring to London, and I think I might say it wrong. We used to refer to it as Delft, but I believe the official name is Delft Colony. And Saul's going to correct us a little bit here when we introduce him, but I want to say, Jim, at max, maybe 4 to 5 rows of houses. That's something like that. It's that small.
So I grew up with Yedem around the corner from us. Is it smaller than Yedem?
We're going to find out right now.
It is? Oh, okay. All right, here we go.
So without further ado, in the RobLive studio with me and Jim today, the one and only Dr. Saul Salinas.
Yes.
Good to have you. Thank you for coming.
I appreciate you, Rob. Thank you for inviting me.
Correct me on that. How many rows in Delft houses?
It's Lawrence 397, 57 in Payne. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4. Ooh. And Road 56. Road 56 is the main road. So if you count Road 56, it's 5.
Wow. Okay. So, and the reason it's so, to me, just an extraordinary story, and we're going to let Dr. Saul here elaborate on it, because he wrote a whole dissertation. In this small area, Jim, right? The only place I can compare it to that comes to mind right now is Pacoima. You ever heard of Pacoima?
No.
So Pacoima is in the San Fernando Valley. When you think about Pacoima, here, I'm just going to give you 3 names. Richie Valens, right? What's Machete's name? Danny Trejo?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I keep calling him Machete. And George Lopez.
All of them are from the same town?
And there's many more, right?
Wow.
From Pacoima. And so you go to Pacoima, and you think, hey, I'm going to see some sort of thriving, supportive community. And, to some degree, it may be, on the inside. But when you look at Pacoima, you're like, wow, this looks kind of like a rough neighborhood I might have grown up in. And yet all this talent and ambition, just coming out of there. And so when we talk about Delft Colony, right, I know 2 people right off the top of my head that I'm like, do you remember one of our first guests, Marcus McMarion, the quarterback?
Yeah.
Division I quarterback.
Yeah.
Delft Colony, right?
Wow, seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
Then there's one that me and Saul were talking about that he wasn't aware of, that I ended up, we're very close friends. His name's Celerino Mercado. And he's with Deloitte, which is one of the largest, international accounting firms in the world, not in the country, in the world. And he's, partnership up there, climbed all the way to the top, Delft Colony.
Wow.
Now those two aren't even part. Are any of them part of your dissertation? He's got a whole nother list of people with just amazing accomplishments coming from that small area. And so we want to start from there and just talk about your upbringing.
Yeah, thanks. So Delft Colony, I had to do some research. There's not a lot of research on Delft. It is part of Danuba. So if you look at my address, it's Danuba, California.
Yeah, London says Danuba.
Yeah, so same thing. So Delft Colony was created at the turn of the century for the Dust Bowl refugees. So those two communities, including London, there's an individual that basically wanted to build communities for the poor whites from Oklahoma and Arkansas when they became refugees to come work and pick cotton. So big Mennonites at that time, there was German Mennonites. These were Dutch Mennonites, right? Trying to come into Delft and London and build those communities because they needed housing. So that's why those two communities were built. Fast forward to the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the Mexican immigration started occurring, and that the poor whites ended up having a little bit more economic mobility, moved out of Delft, and that's how London and Delft pretty much became what they are. So I grew up there in the 70s, 80s. I was very fortunate that my family never moved. We lived there my entire life, and so did a lot of my friends. It's not like that anymore. A lot of transient individuals come in. Maybe they double up, they triple up. Before, you would have a little house and a pretty large lot. Now, if you go to Delft, it has not grown, but the population has grown. So you see that same little small house, but now you may have 2 or 3 trailers. You might have an addition that was built in the back. So Delft now, it's hard for a census to go in because you don't know who's who. So definitely grew up there. All the friends that I had was pretty much the entire K-12 life from kindergarten all through 12th grade. We went through school. And when I did my study, people were looking at, like, how did this happen? Because at a Delft Colony, what started occurring with my dissertation was I didn't quite know what to do. And you can't always name the area because and confidentiality, you're not supposed to name where you're sampled.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, it's against kind of research. But what I ended up doing with the help of some professors is I wrote that into my consent form. So if you're a Delft Colony university graduate, not a college graduate, university, bachelor's, master's, doctoral degree, you basically sign off on the consent saying that you agree that Delft Colony is going to be named in the research study.
Wait, let's run that back.
Okay.
Not just a 4-year degree, but a master's as well and a doctorate.
Those are the individuals that I went after.
Wow.
Bachelor's, master's, or doctorate.
And how many did you find?
So I started just counting my friends, right? I'm like, next thing you know, I think my mom was at the table. ¿Quién más recibió, mom? Pues ya, la hermana, la hija de la hermana. I'm like, what? On Spanish, like, who else has these degrees? And I went from maybe, 7, 8, 15, 20, and I think I got up to around 33.
What?
And
I thought you were going to be under 10.
Man,
33.
Dude, we got 10 in my family, and that's another story.
This is crazy, right? Is this crazy?
Yeah. So part of that was you have to have lived in Delft Colony. The part of my requirements was you had to have lived as a minor in Delft Colony, and you have to have received a bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degree. Those were the requirements, and then you have to agree to be interviewed. And part of my study was because I think when you look, and you all talked about, like, man, Delft is in the middle of nowhere. It's poverty. It's English learners. It's socioeconomic disadvantage. There's no way anybody from this community, if you just look at the community, that anybody is going to come out and do something special.
We call it dirt roads and stray dogs.
You mentioned Marcus McMarion. So Marcus McMarion, his mom and his family and his grandparents live right next door to me growing up.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
I know Marcus,
right?
since he was a little kid. Then they had a house come in. But Marcus's grandfather and his great grandfather were one of the first Mexican families to have settled in Delft Colony, I believe in the 60s.
Wow.
So Marcus and seeing Marcus grow up and go off to Oregon State, and then I always say he spoke at an event and he goes, "Hey, what's up, Saul?" And I'm like, "Hey, you got to give Delft Colony that. You're from Delft, dude. You're not from Danuba."
He said it on the interview.
Yes, he's from Delft.
He made that distinction. Remember?
Yeah. So part of what I wanted to study was, okay, so how did this happen? Like, we didn't come together and say, hey, we're going to go and do something. We're going to go to college. It just happened. But then I started thinking, how does things just don't happen? So I want to look at 3 different areas. Like, what was the role of the community, right? And was the community an asset? My entire dissertation was kind of like this podcast is the good, the asset, right? So I looked at what was the role of the family? What was the role of community? What was the role of the family? Those 2 things. And what was the role of Mexican American identity? And I said Mexican American because majority of us were Mexican American. We're first generation. Our parents were from Mexico. We were born here. So those are the 3 areas. So I'm like, how did those 3 areas, family, community, and Mexican American identity, contribute to these individuals going off and getting a bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degree?
And that's how you came up. And 33.
And so now there's more. So I still have a list on my phone that it's just growing. I met the individual that you were talking about, the accountant. I messaged him on LinkedIn, and he did live 2 years in Delft Colony as a minor, and so he qualifies. So this
just
list
adds to the list.
This list. I have an individual that just came back. She's like 23, and she reached out to me. Her grandmother, she lived in Delft as a minor. She's pre-med right now. She's getting into medical school.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking this list continues, and it's just. And here's the biggest thing. This is my goal as an educator, and coming from Delft, coming from rural Tulare County, is our educators cannot see these experiences or these goals as the exception, right? Because if you look at me, you're going like, oh, you're the exception. Like, oh yeah, you've done great. You're one of. We have to start normalizing this process. Like our students are special. Our students can achieve. We may not look like the traditional student, but it doesn't mean we don't have intelligence and we don't have, because a lot of this had to do with what were my outcomes? Like what happened? Like what did people say that really helped in regards to what's called my findings in my study?
Yeah.
And a lot of it was, we had a church there in Delft, right? There was a church called Church of God. It was a Pentecostal church. A lot of us, we went to church. The church really helped. I had one of my participants say, the skills that I learned in church with understanding scripture, how to find scripture, how to quote scripture, memorize scripture, helped me transfer those skills into my everyday K-12 experience. Like those skills transferred. And then also there's other participants that would say the church was there when I was going through a tough time as a teenager. Another participant, when I was a teen mom, the church was there. And so you look at a support system that you would think there's this isolated community, but there was an asset that we all grew up with one another and we all knew each other. And then the church was there as a support. So that was one of the findings, the role of the church. And right now with the community schools model that we have, we're opening up now the school and educational doors to faith-based organization. It doesn't have to be a church. It could be whatever your students may be able to benefit from. But that was a big thing. Another finding I had was los consejos, right? The storytelling. Like in Mexican culture, storytelling. And that goes back to our indigenous practices, the storytelling that, we can't maybe give you everything, but we can give you the stories. And the stories and the consejos, the motivation, the dichos, right? The sayings, those are all things that came up in my findings to say, man, my dad would tell me this, and that carried me on to my studies, and that was big. And
Do you have one that stands out to you right now? Like, man,
there was one of my
goes in your head.
Yeah, there was one that she was at Cal Poly, majoring in engineering, and it was rough. First in her family to go to a 4-year, and then she goes off to Cal Poly, and she would cry when her dad would go visit, or she would when they would separate, and she would cry and cry because she felt she was left alone. And her dad would say, "Mija, estás bien. Los años se van a pasar de volada. The 4 years are gonna go by really fast." That was one saying that she kept. Okay, 4 years. And after the first year, she felt better. But he would also refer to his last name, and he would say, "You're so and so. You have it inside of you. It is so and so." Like I can't say the last name.
Yeah.
But that was the motivation, and she would just feel empowered. Like, I am one of those. I am one of them. And this is a family that have gone through a lot of struggles and sacrifice. And when he would say that to her, she would just be like, I felt like I would just put my family on my back and like, let's go through. I'm gonna be Cal Poly Mustang, man. I'm gonna have a degree in engineering. Who does that? Who gets admitted and then who
Yeah.
graduates? And then right now she is an engineer, which is phenomenal. But just what I wanted to do, and I'm still planning to do it, is to build some type of documentary.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, to showcase and to give educators an opportunity to see a non-traditional, because what happens is sometimes like, man, these families, and I'm going to try to keep it asset-based. Sometimes there's this perception that our families or Latino families, especially within the Spanish-speaking community, don't show up. Oh, they don't come to the parent-teacher conference, they don't answer emails. And I tell educators, I'm like, it's not that our families don't want to help, it's the fact that they give the educational system so much respect that we would hope you take care of our kids, right? So don't see that as a deficit. Look at different ways of seeing what is an asset. And that's the goal of my research, is non-traditional assets that educators have to look like, because nobody helped us with their homework. No one could call an email and speak the language. None of us. All of us, our parents were all Spanish speaking. Like, and if you look at that, you may look at that, well, see, that's why they don't help. They can't speak the language. They don't show up. Our parents are working till like 5:30, and they come in working from the fields. Like, they're not going to go to no parent-teacher conference or, hey, let me pick up the phone when you're already home, right? Back then, there wasn't cell phones. So at the same time, my goal is to build something and get some of the younger graduates also to see because I didn't study them. I study more people my age, because those are the people that I know. But really build something that's going to give educators an example of how are we looking at communities, how are we looking at people, how are we looking at families, and are we looking at them through a deficit lens or an asset-based lens? And if you look at them through an asset-based lens, you're going to pull the asset and you're going to build on the asset, and then hopefully that in turn help empower the student to do better.
Wow. Yeah, no, you said exactly what I was thinking when you were like, because when you shared this story, and now that you said it's 33 different people from Delft, I was thinking this is a documentary. It's a very compelling documentary.
Yeah, it totally is. My question would be, because your high school was Dinuba and borderline, maybe it was further north, so Reedley.
Yeah, no, we all went to the New Baha'i.
Okay, so what steps pursued these kids? Which you've named over 5+ people, and you found 30. What made them pursue into high school, going with that drive that I'm going to be that type of successful person?
Yeah, I think, and I read a lot of studies, and I hate to say it, the research shows, because I can't quote you any studies, but I read a lot of studies that first generation immigrant families, those students that are looking to pursue something more than their parents have, there's this drive in us. See, I always tell students, you don't have to have it all figured out. Like for me, I did not have it all figured out. If anybody watches, like if Nasser or anybody watches, it's like, man, so that guy didn't have it figured out in high school. I didn't. I didn't get in trouble, but what happens is, at the same time, doesn't mean I'm not going to go and do something special, right? And I think what happens for a lot of people is our educational system, we want students to have it figured out. Where do you want to go? What's your college and career path? What do you choose to do? And for me, that wasn't happening. We didn't have the robust college and career counseling. We didn't have those pathways that people are on you. Come on, let's see what you and getting. We didn't have those motivations. What I did know is what I didn't want. See, I didn't know what I wanted. Yeah. I knew what I didn't want, and there was 2 or 3 things that I didn't want. One was I didn't want to work in the fields anymore. I worked in the fields 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and then I moved on to the packing shed 11th grade and 12th grade. And all through college, I went back home when I was getting my bachelor's, and I worked the summer and at Abe's Pick and Bucket, and I was their head shed tender. But I knew I didn't want that, right? I could hang when I was young, but I'm like, I don't want this. And another thing is, I don't want to be poor. I did not want to be poor, and I share this example sometimes in Dinuba High, in the spirit of attempting to build community in the classrooms. The teachers will do this, right? I'm not blaming anybody, but this is just a prime example how it really becomes detrimental for an individual like myself. is they would go around the room. Let's go around the room and let's talk about what everybody did in the summer. Right?
I talk about that in my class.
When it came to me, after hearing Walt Disney World, summer camp, church camp, Morro Bay. Where in the heck is Morro Bay anyways? I hadn't seen the ocean until I was already like 25, right? I never saw the ocean. So they would name all these things, and I was like, this is going to come to me. It's going to come to me. And I would get so stressed. What am I going to say? Now it's trendy. You can say, I had a staycation, right? I stayed home. Yeah. Back then, I was like, nah, we, oh man, just go away. And I remember this anxiety, and it's unnecessary. Kids shouldn't have anxiety talking about what. I'm like, no, we just hung out, and I would put my head down. I'm like, please don't ask me a clarifying question. Please don't ask me a clarifying. But what the teacher did not know is when school ended on Friday, at 5:45 the next day on Saturday, I was already picking fruit. And what she didn't know is on Saturday, from the Monday before school started, that was my last day of work because we didn't work on Sundays. She didn't know that. And what she didn't also realize is I would clench my fists because there was so much dirt under my nails and it was so just filthy. It didn't wash off. So I would hang out like this a lot because my nails were filthy, and you could scrub and cut them and it just wasn't going away because dirt mixed with pesticides and just with sweat, that tends to stain. And that what was happening. So to answer your question, I haven't figured out those motivating factors.
Well, some part of my mind is thinking, is it because, and I grew up in Orosi, so I lived it. I knew what a lot of the kids one of my best friends, Willie, was talking, he would go to the fields before school, and then they'd get out of school, they're back in the fields. Yeah. So they would work twice a day, and I used to always trip out like, dude, didn't you guys do it the first time in the morning? Mm-hmm. And he goes, no, we got to keep working. So I get it, and I understood that. So would you say that it was kind of a hidden blessing to be able to be at that level with everyone else in that town that I wouldn't say you're rock bottom, but you're surrounded by an environment of lifestyle that people were like, this ain't going to be for me for the rest of my life.
Yeah, those aren't conversations that took place for us. I was fortunate that my dad never took us out of school. Mm-hmm. I had friends that wouldn't start school till mid-September, October because they were still working the raisins, right? My dad never took us out of school to work. And another thing my dad did is he never took our money. But I don't quite know the rationale behind. Now, some of my friends, they would miss the first month of school. And they would miss school in the spring because it was now farming season. But I don't know. Everybody has their own story, and I don't like to generalize like what we're all going through. And another thing too is we had some fun though, man. It was cool knowing everybody. We couldn't get away with anything. Everybody knew we were at someone's house. And it wasn't people like, oh, my parents always say, come home before the lights turn on. Like, we didn't really have lights. So what lights turn on? And we were out in the dark too. And it didn't really matter because you couldn't be messing off because that door might open and be somebody else's mom or dad watching you doing or saying something inappropriate. And we rode bikes and had a good time. So for me, that was good. That helped with the sense of community, sense of security. The challenging part is we all got bused into school. That's when it was, and you know how it is to be that London kid. And I know how it is to be that Delft kid. Like, we're othered. You're not part of this community. Like, you get bussed in. You're the farmers' kids, the farm working kids. You don't have the cool clothes. But all right, cool. And I always tell students, I go, it doesn't matter how you start. It's how it ends, man. And ultimately, and we still got work to do, Robert. I mean, you're busy and I'm busy, and we still got things to do. But the biggest thing is we didn't have that sense of, we want to go do something great. Like, at least I could speak for, like, no one really planned that. Like, hey, let's come together and go. And it's not like McFarland where these individuals were training every day to go win a Valley title and then go and do something great with Kevin Costner in the Disney movie. We didn't have that. We just had individuals coming together. Yeah. And because we had the love and the support and the prayers of our families, things ended up going really well for a lot of us.
Well, you had said too, you didn't want to be poor. You didn't want to work where you were working. The elements that you were living in were kind of in that. You were seeing what you didn't want to be,
Yeah.
so that kind of maybe. I'm speculating, but did that push you saying, "Okay, I need to get out of here and do something better with myself"?
Not necessarily, because I had a tremendous role model right in my immediate family, which is my sister. My sister, Doctor, she was the first doctor. It's interesting because people, I don't know if I told you, Rob, but people, when I got my doctorate in 2022, they were just like, man, your family should be they're probably so proud you got your doctorate. I'm like, I go, my sister has a PhD from UCLA in information systems. She was the first of our family to leave Delft and to go off and double major at Santa Barbara, UC Santa Barbara, go to UCLA for her master's and her PhD. I go, so yeah, my family's proud, but this is normal for us. My mom has, and this is a documentary in itself, 14 university degrees in her pipeline.
Wow.
Yeah, 14. I have 4. My sister has 4. Now we have nieces and nephews. One of my nephew, my sister, let's talk about just building on the legacy. Her husband has a PhD and is a professor. She has 2 children. One has a PhD and is a professor. And my niece Viviana just graduated last May with her JD, and she just passed the bar on the first try this past summer.
Wow,
So we
good
have this
job.
legacy, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that, like, my dad, although he's not with us anymore, like, he instilled, like, he would say, you know, te pueden quitar todo, right? They could take everything away from you, but no, nunca te pueden quitar. I'm gonna take away my Mexican card right now.
Quitar.
Nunca te pueden quitar el estudio. Your studies can never be taken away. And he was a big advocate, and just because he although he didn't get an opportunity, he had the opportunity in Mexico and was denied the opportunity to move on. So there's just a lot that goes into it, but at the same time, like, what happens now? Like, I want our educators to know, if you see the little Saulito in the room that's kind of rough and just kind of, you know, not engaged, don't give up on them, man. Because I was told one time by a trainer, if you had the next president of the United States in your classroom, how would you treat them? If you knew, like, they were going to be like, well, I would do this, I would do that. And that trainer says, you have them. You just don't know.
Wow.
And when I became,
That's powerful.
yeah, you have them. When I became a vice principal at Alta Sierra, it was the highest performing middle school, and here I am, an individual who's brand new. I got this gig, and what do you do with individuals that are at 90% proficient, right? Like, just knocking it out of the park. And I told them a story, and I shared my educational journey in pictures, right? And there's 3 individuals that I care deeply about. 2 of them have passed away. I'm not sure about the third one, but they're Danuba educators, and I share the story about all these educators and I have pictures of them through social media, and I call their names out.
Do I know some of these
Yeah,
educators?
well, you know the 3 I'm going to highlight.
Oh, okay.
But I share these stories with these teachers, right, who are very, very high level teachers, and I share these stories, and at the end I share the story of Mr. Alexander. Mr. Alexander was my woodshop teacher, and Mr. and Mrs. Clark. I don't know if you remember Mr. and Mrs. Clark. Mrs. Clark was you could take was the algebra teacher. Mr. Clark was the biology teacher.
Yes.
Mr. Alexander was the woodshop teacher. But before I shared with them, I shared all the teachers that caused me additional stress and anxiety, and I went through grade by grade by grade by grade, and at the end I said, I only have one question for you. I told my teaching staff, I said, how do you want to be remembered? Because I am putting a lot of my former educators, I'm exposing them to what they did to me. Now, we work for the government, and there's accountability. And what you don't want, I tell these teachers, is you don't want a 40-something-year-old administrator putting you on blast when they have the floor, putting you on blast. And I did that, and I did that very openly, but I did it and there was educators who were crying. And they came up to me, and they were trying to check in on me. And I was like, I'm good. But I'm sharing these experiences because you have those students in your classroom right now that are probably putting you on blast. You just don't know. And the reason why Mr. Alexander, Mr. Clark, and Mrs. Clark are very dear to me. So Mr. Alexander was the woodshop teacher in 10th grade. And we talk about the power of relationships. I didn't know what I really want to do. I took woodshop, and he goes, hey, why don't you apply for my advanced woodworking class. And that was in 11th grade. And I said, okay. He goes, yeah, you're one of the top students. And my family, we knew construction, we knew so a little bit of I was the gopher guy. I wasn't the expert. My brother's the expert in those kind of trades. But I took woodworking, and then I took advanced cabinet making. Well, I didn't know in advanced cabinet making, you have to make big types of projects, and you have to pay for the material, right?
Yeah.
So I couldn't afford it, but I wanted to stay in the class. I'm like, how am I going to pay 100, 150 for a curio cabinet or a big bookcase or something like there's no way. And at that time, that's obviously career technical education now. At that time, it wasn't like, well, there wasn't an impact program where they're going to come and pay my fees. Yeah. They're like, oh, well, you don't have any money? Like, I didn't even think about maybe the principal or somebody stepping up. And so Mr. Clark came in one day and said, why don't you and a couple of your friends make my garage cabinets? He goes, I'll pay for all the material. You make my cabinets, and we'll be good. And I told the teacher, I go, is that going to count towards my grades? He goes, yeah, make them. So we made one cabinet at a time. I think we made like 6 big cabinets, man. It came out nice. And I was like the head, right, the project manager. And I had like 2 or 3, okay, sand that. No, got to cut this. And we made these beautiful. Mr. Clark did a few things. Every Friday, he brought us pan dulce for the whole class.
Wow.
So the class loved him. Like, man, Mr. Clark, come here. Yeah, because we're on the payroll, man. You're getting pan because of us, right? And another thing he did at the end of the project, he gave us all money. Wow. I don't know if you could do that now, but I want to say it was like $60 each. $60 at that time. At the same time, I have his wife, Mrs. Clark, for algebra. And Mrs. Clark, if you ever had Mrs. Clark, she was very no nonsense, to the point. Like, either you like her, you don't like her, and it doesn't matter to her. She's going to do her work. Phenomenal algebra teacher. She came and offered me support in a way that was just very different. Like, and she would say, well, why don't you come in at break and I could help you with some of that because I think you could do it. I think that's a way of providing some support. Mrs. Clark and I became really, really close, and then I took Algebra 2, and at that time, you only needed 3 years of math to get into Fresno State. And it was really interesting because she took me under her wing. Mr. Clark even, they lived in a ranch outside of Danuba. Even, hey, get some of your friends come in, and I need some yard work. So we would go do a little bit of side jobs for him, Mrs. Clark. And what started happening, and you'll appreciate this, I started performing and studying for Mrs. Clark.
Yeah.
Like, I can't say that for all my other teachers, right? Because if you look at my report cards, like, there's like a lot of D's and C's here. But because Mrs. Clark gave me that love and support, I started to think, well, she deserves to get the best of me. And these are hard subjects, right? Math was not easy for me. Yeah. And I started performing and putting a lot more energy into Mrs. Clark. And when I got my doctorate, I need to call them in 2022.
Oh, so you made the call. What was that like?
I found her in the yearbook. I found her in the phone book, in the not the phone book, on the internet. And I called her, and she's like, hello? And it's the same. And I go, Mrs. Clark, do you remember me? My name is Saul Salinas. They used to call me Saul back home. She's like, oh, yeah. You're the one that got perfect attendance because you like going to the pizza parties. I'm like, yep. And she had a really interesting personality. I go, hey, well, I done this, and I just finished my doctorate, and I want to thank you for the love and support that you gave me. And she was just like, okay. Because she was no nonsense. I go, I also want to thank Rex, your husband. He goes, well, he died last year. And I felt, if you have something to say to somebody, thank them. Do it now when they're alive, because you never know. And I started crying. I'm like, he died? He's like, he died last year. And so I thanked her, and Mr. Clark was a little bit more personal, but I was able to thank her, and that really brought closure to be able to go and pay respect to the fact that she helped me, and I acknowledged her, and I attempted to uplift her. She passed away, I believe, now a year or two ago now, so she's gone now. I don't know about Mr. Alexander, but these are just the educators, and I do a lot of diversity work and equity work, and I said, you don't have to be the same color, because our heart is all the same. You really don't.
Amen.
It just depends if you want to put in the work, because it takes work.
Wow. So one thing that stuck with me from all that you shared there, and I'm a firm believer in this, is this idea of normalizing high standards. And Jim, you might have heard me say this before on the show, but we talk about the Janet Jackson effect. Do you remember that example? Well, the Janet Jackson effect is something I came up with one day because I was, in class, and we're talking about, okay, how can I verbalize this normalization of high standard? And so I thought about Janet Jackson, and in the 90s, she was the #1 selling female artist of all time. However, when she was born, right, you imagine being born into the Jackson family. By the time she's 5 years old, 5 of her older siblings are on television, they're touring, they're famous, they're wealthy, right? All of these things that seem fairly outlandish to the average individual, but seemed very normal in Janet's world because these were her brothers. And they weren't on a pedestal because she saw their dirty laundry on the floor and she saw them get yelled at by dad. And, they're very everyday normal people. And I said, well, if my idiot brother Randy can figure this out, I think I can do it too, right? And so this idea of success and entertainment was normalized in that home. And so when it was Janet's turn to get in the studio, she's like, yeah, I can sing. Michael can do it. I can do it. Right. And it was like, I can dance. My brothers are on, doing choreography daily in the living room. I can dance with these guys. And so she was already set for success, not because her brothers had paved the way in terms of, oh, we got all the connects, which is the average person would say. I would say it'd be more about the fact that she had these up close and personal, very relatable examples of success that normalized success. And I call it the Janet Jackson effect. And so I'm trying to do that right now. I'm in the classroom daily with my students. I want the RobLive thing, I want it to blow up while I'm still in the classroom, not removed. Because then every day I show up and sometimes I've got mismatched socks, or I'm stuttering at the board, or I'm misspelling something, or I forget the curriculum, whatever. I'm very human flaws. And it's like, wait a minute, this is the same guy who, him and his partner have this viral YouTube channel. I can do this if Mr. You know what I mean? And so I'm trying to do that same thing to normalize success by having that up close personal audience the way Janet had her brothers. So when you said that about, our educators and our system normalizing these expectations and standards and levels, I see that in patches, right? And now looking at it, Clovis is one of them. So I'm going to give you the same example that I gave Thea. I don't know if I said it on the show, but I told Jim, I said, Jim, it was my big break and it backfired on stage. And he's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, I was trying to make this point that we have forgotten who we are and we're more inhibited and we question our talents, right? Because of all of the social pressure and the peers hating on us, that from kindergarten to 7th and 8th grade, right, we've forgotten who we are. I said, not Impact. Impact turned my challenge into a on-the-spot impromptu talent show. Do you remember all the kids?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. Most of the time when I give that speech, they're like, I'm not going on stage. He's not. Impact kids were like, me. They all wanted to go up there and show their talents because why? Impact has normalized success and being confident in your abilities. And that's when I really started to fall in love. I fell in love with Impact on stage. And I was like, I love that this is backfiring because it means something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was one of the first vice principals over Impact when it started 12 years ago. I was over the Buchanan area.
Yeah.
And the reason why you see that forward lean, you see that a lot with our Clovis Unified students. We put our students in a position early on, hey, get in front of the class, take the initiative. Dr. Buchanan, our founding superintendent, one day told me, he goes, hey, if nobody wants to take over the world, Clovis Unified students will. So I think the way we embed our curriculum and our approach to education is you're part of this as well, students. And you're supposed to have that forward lean. When someone asks for a question, raise your hand. It's supposed to be a competition. We're very competitive, right? Even though Clovis North is not. You're going to that game next weekend.
I won't bring it up.
But it's the Impact team has definitely empowered students to know their worth, right? That's
I see that.
and to know their worth and to know that they're being seen, they're being heard, and they're being uplifted. And that's one of the tremendous assets they have within that team is they have a group of students that their job is to make them feel better about it. Because what happens is you can't have this anxious, depressed, kind of sad way of going through life, and then educators expect you to do well in class, right? Sad people aren't learning, right? Depressed students are not. People with anxiety. So, yeah, I remember seeing that and those students just stepping up and be like, I'm next. And you're just like, who do I pick,
You
right?
saw my
And then
face.
that young lady threw a spiral like, bam.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, whoa.
No. The one that I always remember was this little girl, and she's like, "All right, I want to rap." So what are you gonna do? She's like, "Oh, I'm doing Eminem. Like I'm going to the top. I want the Oscar-winning rapper."
And that just goes to show our students in Clovis Unified. And like I said, we're very competitive, and the biggest competition that we try to have is the competition amongst the students within themselves.
Yeah.
Right, that in getting them, like, you need to compete with yourself. If you're not comfortable with that's your problem, and we need to get you over that. But yeah, it's definitely it's
It was eye-opening for me.
and I've seen that this is 20 years for me in Clovis Unified, and for me to be part of a system like that, it's a blessing because you get to see how students they transform, and they get the confidence. And that they begin to believe in themselves, and then you have that behavior.
Impressive.
Yeah.
So I always like to end episodes whenever we can. Jim calls them the bumper sticker moment, right? Where you impart something that you've learned along the way on your journey with our audience that you think might help them. And so I want to paint a picture for you of who might be watching right now. Somewhere out there's a kid from a town like Delft who may not have the same support systems that you were, blessed with, but still wants to go out there and give it a shot. Then trying to position themselves to be academically and emotionally prepared to move on beyond high school. What would be 3 to 5 key things you would recommend they do as a student, either entering high school or already in high school, to position themselves for academic success beyond high school?
The students right now are very fortunate because they have access. They have access to different types of career inventories, what they like, what they don't like. They have access to career technical education. They have access to internships. So if I was a student, I would look to see what I connect with, right? There's a saying, if you love what you do, you're never going to work again in another day of your life, right? So that would be like really begin to understand what you like. And a lot of our students, they like the technology piece, the content creators, the digital platforms, the video game design. Well, then go and find it. So you can't just say, I want to be a video game designer. Well, how are you going to do that? And we want to give students hope, but I always ask the next question. Like, what have you done to figure that out? Like, and you have access. You don't even have to leave your room, right? You can just find out. So really begin to look at what what you're interested in. Another thing too is really start to picture is what you could be good at. There was you could be anything you want. Well, you got to be good at it, right? So connect with what you like, but then also what you could possibly be good at.
Lean into your strengths.
Yeah. Another thing too is if you have at that age, it's very crucial around the social influence. If you have individuals that are stealing your dreams, man, you can't. And we could do a 2-hour podcast and talk about everybody who tried to steal my dream, but now they're haters. But also being careful of protecting your spirit, right? And those could be people within your same household. There's no way you could do that. And protecting your spirit to the point where you give up on that dream. Like, one thing we don't do a lot as adults, you are doing it tremendously, is sometimes we stop dreaming, right? I don't want to stop dreaming. I want to be able to lean on the plans that God has for me and to say, I still want to do more. I still have the capacity to do more. But having students understand, like, you have to protect your dreams and not give those dream killers any type of attention. And that's harder. That's very hard because sometimes those dream killers are in your very intimate circle.
You right now when you're saying that, I literally played this scene 2 days ago in my class. Have you seen Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith
Oh, yeah.
and his son? There's a scene there where his son's playing basketball and he says, "Hey, listen, man, I wasn't very good. You're not probably going to be very good, so you probably shouldn't be wasting time doing this." And the son, being 5 years old, impressionable, throws the basketball, says, "I'm done." And then he walks up to him and says, "Hey, listen, don't ever let anybody steal your dream. You got a dream, you got to protect it. Not even me." And I just thought of that as you were saying that.
So that's three. Another thing that my sister just like, man, she's insane, man. She's PhD.
Gotta get her in here.
Man, she lives in Alhambra in LA, but to have both her kids, one a PhD and one a JD, like, come on, man. Yeah, matter of fact, I have to put this out there. During COVID, she's a librarian, right? So she was part of this library association, right? And they were having this online conference, and she got to introduce Dr. Jill Biden, that was a keynote speaker.
Oh, wow.
Online. So she's like, our keynote speaker is Dr. Jill. It's all on Zoom, right? And then it goes to Dr. Biden, and she says, "Thank you so much for the introduction, Dr. Salinas." And I'm like, "Oh, wait." I'm like, Delft calling me Dr.
connect.
Salinas.
So...
And here's the power of the Dr. Salinas. And I tell my students, because I teach at Fresno Pacific,
you're a sunbird.
Yeah, I teach out there in the Master of Social Work. They're like, "What's the importance of the doctor? Can we call you doctor or mister or professor?" I'm like, "No, you're going to call me doctor." And they're like, "Why?" I said, you want to know why?" And then I get deep with them. I said, "The reason why you have to call me doctor is because you don't call me Dr. Saul Salinas. You just call me Dr. Salinas." So when you call me Dr. Salinas, you're actually naming my grandfather, my dad, my other grandfather, all these Salinases that have come before me and sacrificed for people like me to be able to be called Dr. Salinas." And they're like, "That's deep." Like, well, so is my degree. But my sister says something very, very impactful one day. I said, what advice did you give your children, the PhD and the JD, as they were growing up and maybe they were doubting themselves? She goes, "I told them," and I'm probably paraphrasing, "you have the strength inside of you already. You just don't know." So I would tell those young people that are still trying to figure it out, you have the strength in front of you. You come from a years and years of legacy of hard work and sacrifice. You just don't know. But you have the strength inside of you already. It's your job to figure out how that surfaces. And probably the last thing is you deserve success, especially for individuals that come from a very, very hard background, maybe don't have a lot. Like, you deserve, like, people say to me, like, "Oh, you're lucky." I'm like, I don't gamble, so I'm not lucky. And I said, it was all intentional, but it didn't happen over a short period of time. Like, I went to school in the 90s, the early 2000s, 2010s, and 2020s. I went to school over 40 years. I'm not 40 years, 30 years. And I tell people, I'm like, I did those in little parts to get better. But at the same time, you deserve success. And the second question I sometimes get asked, because I have 2 full-time jobs, right? Like, I teach full-time at Fresno Pacific. Like, I'm in the Master's in Social Work. I go teach at night. And like, how do you navigate 2 full-time jobs? And I said, these 2 full-time jobs don't even come close to the jobs that my ancestors had growing up, working the fields in Danuba and Orosi and Visalia and Tulare and Hanford. Not even close. Because when I get home at 10 o'clock from teaching, so if my day is from 7:30 in the morning till 10 at night, my back doesn't hurt. I'm not dirty. I don't have to go and take a shower and rub the pesticides out of my eyes. Oh, God. Right? I'm still able to speak. I'm not hitting the bed I'm not collapsing. I go, those are the experiences that people that came before me did, so I can have 2 full-time jobs and still be good.
You just put everything in perspective for me. I'm never going to complain about driving an hour to do an amazing podcast again. You've taken that away from me.
Yeah, and sometimes we feel like we don't want to, right? Like Sundays are a very special day for us.
Yeah.
We go to church, we have lunch, we relax. There's no football on. I know I don't know how you recorded her on Super Bowl Sunday, but anyways, but for me, these type of experiences are important because like it's what we need to do. We need to share stories. We need to motivate our youth. We need to motivate each other, right? And I think if we do more of that, and for me, if one person, if one young person hears this, or if a young adult, like, man, I didn't know that, I don't know about, because a lot of people, I don't share all my experiences publicly, but I think if one person listens in and watches, like, man, I didn't know that about Saul. I didn't know he went through that. I didn't know that little tidbit of advice, and they take it, and their life then pivots, and it pivots for the good. Then, man, that's what it's about, and that's who we are, and that's how we are as God's children. Like, we have to do more of that. Like, people need to, and storytelling is so important. Like, storytelling, my dissertation was narrative inquiry, narrative theory, narrative storytelling, the lived experiences of people. We have to do that as human beings, and that's the one thing technology and social media has taken away, is we can't tell our story unless we're doing this kind of stuff. But most of the time, it's quick tidbits, memes. But we have to sit down with folks and get to know one another and share experiences. Tuesday, I'm going to have lunch with an individual that's pre-med. He's going through some of his studies right now. And I only want to meet with him as a young guy, I think 23, 24. I only want to meet with him because I want to talk about his story. Like, he's either in medical school or about to get into medical school. And for me, that's just amazing. Like, you're going to go through medical school. Maybe you could have Steve on your podcast at one point. His name is Steven.
Want all those guys.
But I think we have to do more of that. We have to share our experiences and know. But the big thing for me is don't think individuals like yourself or you, like, we're not the exception, man. Like, you have to normalize this process, because if you think I'm the exception, you're going to look at all these other people, because there's a group of Mexican Americans here in the Central Valley. There's a lot of us. And thinking back to my counselor told me, and I'm going to say her name was Mrs. Boylan. She told me I was going to go to college. Now, this is a little bit of the disruption piece, and I'm not going to go too much into it. But the 4 times I graduated, especially when I got hooded twice as the master's, and got hooded the third time with the doctoral. When I got hooded, I thought about her every time, because somebody told me no, and I did a video the other day, and it was just a little selfie, and I said, man, my counselor told me I wasn't going to go to college, that I was going to go anywhere, and this is not a knock on trade school. She said, if you go anywhere, it's going to be a trade school. So she took me off college prep track my junior year, and I had to make up a bunch of classes, and I got in through EOP, and I'm
so glad you mentioned them.
When I graduated, Leticia Santos, shout out to Leticia, she's a retired administrator of Fresno City College and Madera Center. She's retired now. She was the Fresno State outreach rep who came out and connected with me, right? And she goes, what happened here? And she's like, oh, man, they took me off college prep track. I'm like, why? She goes, well, because my counselor said I wasn't going to go to college. He goes, she told you that openly? I'm like, yeah. Very upset. Well, I took some extra classes, and I got into Fresno State, but I got in through EOP. And I keep this ribbon.
They have the bridge program. Huh?
Yeah, I didn't go to summer bridge because I was working in the fields, man. I couldn't I got to go work in the fields.
That's right.
But I still have the ribbon. So they gave me this ribbon in 1996, and I keep it wrinkly, right? I keep it wrinkly. I could have ironed it, but I keep it wrinkly because this is kind of how my undergrad was, very wrinkly. Sometimes you have to stretch it. But they gave me this in 1996, and I cherish this because they sent me a letter that says, you've been admitted to Fresno State under special conditions, special admittance. So I had a conditional admittance because my GPA was horrible, and I believe I was missing maybe one class. It was maybe more GPA because I think I had like a 2.5 GPA. But I carry this. I don't carry it with me, but I leave it at the house to remind me. And then in 2022, I was the EOP student speaker.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was
awesome.
a full circle, and I was a chair. So now this is the swag they give you through EOP. They kind of stepped up their game a little bit. This is the sash they gave the students to wear when they graduate. So
That's
EOP,
awesome.
Fresno State. So yeah, it's just it's just I do want to share one more thing here.
Yeah.
So when I graduated, I got a custom ring made for me, and this is my class ring for Fresno State, and it's like the Valley Championship rings. Right?
No, it looks like Super Bowl.
Yeah. But I don't wear this. I have two versions. This is my new version. I keep this in the case, but I wear the old version. But in this ring, there's a couple things. My fraternity letters. There's Dr. Salinas has my fraternity crest, the emblem, because the fraternity really helped me become established and now providing mentorship to the
New Alpha Kappa.
Yeah, NAC, New Alpha Kappa. It has the dog in Fresno State. But in this side, it has EDD, Educational Doctorate, but it has the V. We all know the V, right? Paint the Valley green and the agriculture. But this V is to remind me, and there's a red inside the V. And that's the logo, right? The green and the red. The green reminds me of the fields I used to work. And the red reminds me of the blood, sweat, and tears, and also the blood of Jesus Christ.
Amen.
So when I wear this ring, people think, "Oh, that's pretty cool." I'm like, there's symbolism all over the place. So I don't wear it a lot because it's heavy, but I made this custom when I got my doctorate.
That is beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
Yeah.
for sharing all of this. Wow, that's a lot to unpack. If you're not inspired by this one, man, I don't know what else to tell you guys. This is it right here. From Delft Colony, Dr. Saul Salinas in the house. This is Rob Izquierdo with my homeboy for life, my partner in crime, James. What's your middle name, James?
Philip.
James Philip Chance.
Philip.
Saying love, peace, and chicken grease. We out.